5 years after the liberation, the galaxy had transformed beyond recognition. The rotating capital of the Galactic Democratic Federation moved slowly through space between the Andorian and Centauri systems. Chancellor Ryu Sang-woo stood before representatives from 437 species, delivering his annual address to the assembled delegates. The 5th year of galactic democracy has seen unprecedented cooperation and prosperity, he announced. Trade between liberated species has increased by 300%. Scientific collaboration has produced breakthroughs in medicine, agriculture, and space travel that benefit all member civilizations. In the audience, former High Counselor Thakmin listened with mixed emotions. His own Vextar people had adapted surprisingly well to democratic governance. Without the burden of maintaining galactic dominance, they had rediscovered interests in art and philosophy that had been suppressed for centuries. The transformation has been remarkable, he admitted to Counselor Kelthera during a break-in the proceedings. I never imagined my species could be happier without power over others. Kelthera nodded thoughtfully. The humans understood something we never learned. Domination requires constant effort and creates constant enemies. Cooperation builds strength that compounds over time. Admiral Kim Tae-ho, now serving as Minister of Galactic Defense, had restructured the military completely. Instead of conquest fleets, the Federation maintained exploration and rescue services. His ships protected trade routes, assisted with natural disasters, and defended young civilizations from cosmic threats. Status report from Sector 7, his aide announced. The exploration fleet has made contact with 3 new species near the galactic rim. All appear interested in Federation membership. Standard first contact protocols, Kim replied. No pressure, no demands, just information about our alliance and an invitation to observe our activities. This was perhaps the greatest difference between the Federation and the Old Dominion. New species were welcomed but never coerced. The Federation's reputation for fairness and mutual benefit attracted new members naturally, without the need for conquest or intimidation. Dr. Yu Yun-soo led the interspecies scientific consortium from her laboratory complex orbiting the neutron star designated as Science Station 1. The consortium included researchers from over 200 species, working together on projects that no single civilization could accomplish alone. The new medical treatments developed from HFY energy research have eliminated 7 major diseases, she reported to the Federation Assembly. Kethmori agricultural techniques are feeding populations on 43 different worlds. Mectarian mathematics has solved engineering problems that blocked progress for decades. The scientific renaissance was possible because species could finally share knowledge without fear that it would be used against them. Under the Dominion, technological advances had been hoarded by the dominant races. Under the Federation, every breakthrough benefited all members equally. Captain Lee Hyun-woo commanded the Federation's newest project, establishing contact with civilizations in neighboring galaxies. Early exploration missions had discovered that similar patterns of oppression existed throughout the universe. The Federation was preparing to offer assistance to any species seeking liberation from galactic tyranny. Long-range sensors have detected artificial structures in the Magellanic Clouds, he reported to Federation Command. The signatures suggest advanced civilizations engaged in large-scale conflict. Recommendations? Asked Minister Kim. Cautious approach with diplomatic mission, Lee replied. If there are oppressed species in those galaxies, they deserve the same opportunity we provided here. The Federation had become a beacon of hope, not just for their own galaxy, but for oppressed peoples throughout the universe. Humanity's greatest achievement was not military victory, but demonstrating that cooperation could replace domination as the organizing principle of advanced civilization. Dr. Shin Hai-wan worked with teams of psychologists and sociologists to help former Dominion species adjust to freedom. Many civilizations needed decades to recover from centuries of systematic oppression, but the progress was steady and encouraging. The Yiltar have established their first independent colonies in over 400 years, she reported. Their Population is growing rapidly now that they control their own resources. Their art and literature are experiencing a renaissance that rivals anything in galactic history. The cultural revival among liberated species was unprecedented. Civilizations that had been reduced to mere labor sources rediscovered their unique contributions to galactic civilization. Music, art, philosophy, and literature flourished as species reconnected with their suppressed heritage. Engineer Yoon Ji-hee had transitioned from secret military construction to public infrastructure development. Her teams built hospitals, schools, and research facilities throughout the liberated territories. The same hidden manufacturing capabilities that had built humanity's secret fleet now produced tools for peaceful reconstruction. The new orbital cities around former Dominion worlds are ahead of construction schedule, she reported. Each facility is designed to support the specific needs and preferences of the species that will inhabit them. Unlike the standardized facilities that the Dominion had imposed on all species, Federation infrastructure respected cultural differences and individual needs. Every project was designed in collaboration with the beings who would use it. General An Mi-young had transformed her relief operations into permanent humanitarian services. Federation medical teams, food distribution networks, and educational support systems operated throughout the galaxy, ensuring that no species suffered from poverty or neglect. Malnutrition has been eliminated in 96% of former Dominion territories, she reported. Educational programs have been established for over 300 species. Child mortality rates have dropped by 70% across all liberated worlds. The humanitarian achievements were staggering because they represented the first time in galactic history that an alliance had prioritized the welfare of all members equally. Under the Dominion, resources had flowed only to the dominant species. Under the Federation, they flowed to wherever they were needed most. But perhaps the most remarkable transformation had occurred among humanity's former enemies. Prime Zixandra had become one of the Federation's most effective ambassadors, using her energy-based abilities to communicate with species that others could not reach. The humans taught us that strength comes from lifting others up, not holding them down, she explained to a gathering of newly contacted civilizations. We spent millennia believing that dominance was natural law. Instead, it was simply a choice we made out of fear and ignorance. Her transformation represented something unprecedented in galactic history. Never before had a dominant species voluntarily abandoned their position of power to join an egalitarian alliance. The fact that former Dominion leaders had become advocates for democratic governance demonstrated the power of humanity's example. The economic results were equally impressive. Trade between species had exploded once the barriers imposed by hierarchical control were removed. The Dominion's tributary system had been replaced by free market principles that benefited everyone. Galactic productivity has increased by 400% since liberation, reported Federation Economic Advisor Park Min-soo. Every species now benefits directly from their contributions instead of supporting an extractive imperial system. The prosperity was widespread because it was based on voluntary cooperation rather than forced tribute. Species traded their strengths for what they needed, creating a galaxy-wide economy that lifted all participants. Chancellor Ryu concluded his address with a reflection on the journey that had brought them to this point. 5 years ago, our species signed a peace treaty that we knew was intended as the first step toward our eventual extinction. The Dominion believed they were containing a dangerous newcomer to galactic civilization. He paused, looking out at the assembled representatives from hundreds of liberated worlds. They were right about one thing. We were dangerous to their system of oppression and exploitation, but we were never dangerous to the species they claimed to protect. The assembly erupted in applause from beings of every conceivable form. Former enemies had become allies. Former subjects had become partners. Former enemies of humanity had become advocates for human principles of freedom and cooperation. The peace treaty was indeed a deception, Ryu continued. But the deception was not ours. The Dominion deceived themselves into believing that oppression was sustainable, that hierarchical control was natural law, and that cooperation was weakness. Activated a holographic display showing the current state of galactic civilization. Green indicators marked Federation territories where democracy and cooperation flourished. But scattered throughout the display were red zones where similar liberation movements had begun. Our work is not complete, Ryu declared. Intelligence reports suggest that similar patterns of oppression exist in distant parts of our own galaxy and in neighboring galaxies. As long as any species suffers under tyranny, our mission continues. Ambassador Park So-jin stood to address the assembly from her position as Federation Secretary of Intergalactic Affairs. The Dominion leadership gathered in emergency session aboard the fortress ship Eternal Supremacy. High Counselor Thokman paced the command deck while Prime Zixandra's energy form flickered with agitation. Around them, the most powerful beings in the galaxy struggled to understand how their perfect system had collapsed in less than 48 hours. Status report, Thokman demanded from his military advisor. 73% of our fleet assets are either destroyed, captured, or cut off from command, the advisor replied. Human forces control all major communication hubs. Rebellion activity has been reported in over 200 systems. How many ships do they actually have? Prime Zixandra asked. Current estimates suggest approximately 800 combat vessels, came the response. All of advanced design, many incorporating our own technology in ways we did not anticipate. Thokman stopped pacing. 800 ships. We allowed them to build 800 ships while we believed they had fewer than 50. The scope of the intelligence failure was staggering. For 3 years, Dominion observers had filed reports about human compliance and technological limitations. Every single report had been wrong. The humans had been operating what amounted to a shadow civilization beneath their official activities. Meanwhile, throughout the liberated systems, humanity demonstrated a completely different approach to galactic governance. Supreme Counselor Oh Kyung-ho arrived at the Kethmori homeworld aboard a hospital ship rather than a warship. The message was clear. Humans came as healers, not conquerors. The Kethmori people are free, Oh announced to the massive crowd gathered at their capital city. No more labor quotas, no more tribute payments, no more forced relocation of your children to Dominion education centers. The crowd's response was unlike anything the galaxy had seen in centuries. Species that had lived under oppression for generations celebrated with pure joy. Kethmori families reunited with children who had been taken years earlier. Workers abandoned the industrial facilities that had enslaved them. General An Mi-young coordinated relief efforts across 17 different worlds simultaneously. Her ships carried food, medicine, and industrial equipment to species that had been systematically impoverished by Dominion resource extraction policies. Medical teams report widespread malnutrition among the Yiltar population, her chief medical officer informed her. 3 generations of excessive tribute requirements have left them severely underdeveloped. Establish permanent medical stations on every Yiltar colony, An ordered. Full humanitarian support until their population recovers. Bill all expenses to the Dominion Reparations Fund. The Reparations Fund was another aspect of humanity's comprehensive planning. Human economic specialists had calculated exactly how much wealth the Dominion had extracted from oppressed species over the centuries. Every liberated world would receive compensation sufficient to rebuild their civilization according to their own values. Dr. Shin Hai-wan worked with teams of human and alien psychologists to address the mental trauma of centuries-long oppression. Many species had internalized their subjugation so completely that they struggled to imagine alternatives to the Dominion system. The Mectarian delegation is concerned about their ability to govern themselves, she reported to the Human Leadership Council. They have been under Dominion management for so long that they lack confidence in their own decision-making capabilities. Standard response protocol, replied Counselor Oh. Provide advisory support but insist on their sovereignty. They need to rediscover their own strength, not become dependent on us instead of the Dominion. This was perhaps the most important distinction between human and Dominion methods. Where the aliens sought to create permanent dependence, humanity worked to restore independence. Human advisors provided training and support, but always with the goal of making their assistance unnecessary. Ambassador Park So-jin established the new galactic capital on a neutral world that had never been controlled by any major power. The symbolism was intentional. The new government would not be based in human space or former Dominion territory, but in a location that belonged to all species equally. The Galactic Democratic Federation will convene in 30 days, she announced, to representatives from over 200 species. Every civilization will have voting representation based on population and contribution to galactic welfare. No species will hold permanent authority over others. The response from liberated species was overwhelmingly positive. After centuries of hierarchical control, the concept of actual democracy seemed almost too good to believe. Many delegations asked repeatedly for confirmation that humans would not simply replace the Dominion as the new dominant power. Humanity seeks partnership, not dominance, Park explained to each group. We have seen what domination creates. We prefer cooperation. Dr. Lee Dongwu worked with Kelthera and other reformed alien officials to establish transition governments in former Dominion territory. The process was complex because many species had forgotten how to govern themselves after centuries of external control. The Zijikari Council is struggling with basic administrative decisions, Kelthara reported. We have not made independent policy choices for 300 years. That will change quickly, Lee assured her. Independence is like any other skill. It returns with practice. He showed her examples from human history where oppressed populations had successfully rebuilt their societies after liberation. The process took time, but the results were consistently positive when the liberated people received appropriate support without continued control. Meanwhile, the remnants of the Dominion leadership attempted to organize a counterattack. Councillor Thakman gathered what remained of loyal Dominion forces in the heavily fortified Nexus system. Their plan was simple: concentrate all remaining military assets for one decisive battle that would restore their authority. We still outnumber them, Thakman argued during the Emergency War Council. Combined Dominion forces include over 1,000 ships. Human forces cannot exceed 800 vessels, regardless of their technological advantages. Prime Zixandra was less optimistic. Our forces are scattered and demoralized. Many of our member species have already joined the human alliance. We are fighting not just humans, but our own former subjects. Then we make an example, Thakman decided. One decisive victory will show the galaxy that Dominion power remains supreme. The rebellions will collapse when the rebels see their human allies defeated. The Dominion began recalling ships from throughout their remaining territory. Within a week, they had assembled the largest military fleet in their civilization's history. Nearly 1,100 warships gathered at the Nexus system, representing the combined might of the oldest galactic empire. Admiral Kim Tae-ho received reports of the Dominion buildup with interest rather than concern. Intelligence assessment? He asked his staff. Exactly as predicted, replied Colonel Park Jin-woo. They are concentrating all remaining forces for a single decisive engagement. Classic Dominion strategy dating back 2 millennia. Countermeasures? All prepared. Park confirmed. Phase 4 is ready for implementation on your command. Kim studied the tactical displays showing both human and Dominion force positions. The aliens had assembled an impressive fleet, but they were still thinking in terms of traditional warfare. Ship against ship, fleet against fleet. Victory through superior numbers and firepower. They had not yet grasped that humanity had changed the rules of galactic warfare. Begin Phase 4, Kim ordered. Show them what we learned about modern combat. The human response was unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. Instead of assembling their own large fleet to meet the Dominion armada, humanity deployed thousands of small autonomous vessels. Each was no larger than a fighter craft, but equipped with advanced artificial intelligence and weapon systems derived from alien technology. The autonomous fleet surrounded the Nexus system like a swarm of intelligent hornets. Too small and numerous for the Dominion's large ship weapons to target effectively, they attacked with precision and coordination that no biological crew could match. But the real surprise was what happened to the Dominion fleet itself. As the battle began, Dominion ships began experiencing cascading system failures. Weapons would not fire, engines would not respond. Life support systems flickered unpredictably. "Report," Talkman demanded as his flagship's main cannon refused to target the approaching human swarm. "Sir, we are experiencing widespread computer malfunctions," his technical officer replied. "All systems are compromised." High Counselor Thokman realized with growing horror that the humans had not just infiltrated Dominion communications and intelligence networks. They had infiltrated the computer systems of every major Dominion vessel. For months, perhaps years, human viruses had been dormant in their most secure military technology. "Sir," his communications officer announced, "we are receiving a transmission from the human admiral." Admiral Kim's face appeared on the main screen of every Dominion ship simultaneously. His expression was calm but determined. "High Counselor Thokman, this is Admiral Kim Taeho of the Human Liberation Fleet. Your vessels are disabled and surrounded. I am prepared to accept your unconditional surrender." "Never," Thokman replied. "The Dominion has ruled this galaxy for..." The attack began at exactly 0300 Galactic Standard Time. Across 12 star systems, humanity revealed what 3 years of peace had actually accomplished. The aliens learned that their greatest victory had been their greatest mistake. Captain Choi Min-ho stood on the bridge of what had been the cargo ship Sol Dawn. With the touch of a control panel, the vessel transformed. Hull plates slid away to reveal advanced weapon systems. The modest cargo bay opened to deploy fighters that had never appeared on any registration document. Within minutes, a simple transport became a warship more advanced than anything in the Dominion fleet. "All ships report ready," his tactical officer announced. "Shadow Fleet is operational." Around them, space filled with identical transformations. Cargo ships became cruisers. Mining vessels revealed themselves as heavy destroyers. Transport craft deployed weapons that the aliens had helped humans develop through technology-sharing agreements. The Vextar patrol station that had inspected Choi hundreds of times found itself surrounded by 30 vessels that had supposedly never existed. Patrol Commander Skektar stared at his screens in disbelief. "This is impossible," he transmitted. "These ships are not in any human registry. Where did they come from?" Choi opened a communication channel to the station. "Commander Skektar, this is Captain Choi Min-ho. You have conducted your final inspection of human vessels. Surrender your station and prepare for evacuation." "You cannot do this," Skektar replied. "The treaty prohibits human military expansion beyond defensive forces." "The treaty was signed under false pretenses," Choi explained calmly. "The Dominion never intended to honor its terms. We have documented evidence of your plans for human extermination. The deception ends now." At the same moment, similar scenes played out across alien space. Fleet Commander Seo Junki emerged from the asteroid fields near the Trilaxian home system, with 200 ships that had been hidden for 3 years. The crystalline beings who had helped write the treaty found themselves facing a human armada that outnumbered their entire home defense fleet. "Trilaxian Defense Command, this is Fleet Commander SEO of the Human Liberation Fleet," he announced. "Your weapon systems have been disabled by infiltration teams that have been in position for 18 months. Surrender your vessels and prepare for occupation." The Trilaxian response was a mixture of outrage and panic. "Human vessel, you are in violation of galactic law. The Dominion Council will respond to this aggression with overwhelming force." "The Dominion Council is currently dealing with similar situations in 11 other systems," CO replied. "I suggest you focus on your immediate circumstances." In the HFY energy fields near the galactic core, the ethereal beings discovered that their most secure installations had been infiltrated by human agents, using technology the HFY themselves had provided. Prime Zixandra's panicked communications to other Dominion leaders found only static. The galaxy-spanning communication network that had connected their civilization for centuries had been compromised and controlled by human intelligence operations. Commander Nam Yu-jin coordinated the liberation operations from her command ship near the Kethmori homeworld. For 3 years, the oppressed species had waited for this moment. Now, as human ships provided cover and support, they rose against their Dominion overlords. Kethmori rebellion forces report successful capture of orbital platforms, her communications officer announced. Yiltar ground forces have secured their planetary government centers. Mectarian fleet has joined our formation as planned. The beauty of the operation was its coordination. While the Dominion had believed they were managing separate human territories and various minor species, humanity had been building a galaxy-wide alliance network. Every oppressed civilization had been contacted, organized, and prepared for simultaneous liberation. Admiral Kim Tae-ho commanded the operation from his flagship, positioned in what had been neutral space between human and alien territory. The vessel, designated as a diplomatic transport in all official records, was actually the most advanced warship humanity had ever built. "Status report," he requested. "All primary objectives secured," reported his operations chief. Dominion response fleets are trapped in their home systems by our advanced positioning. Their communication networks are under our control. Military command structures are isolated and unable to coordinate. Kim nodded with satisfaction. 3. Years of intelligence gathering had revealed every weakness in the Dominion's seemingly impenetrable defense network. Their greatest strength, centralized control, had become their greatest vulnerability when that control was compromised. "Any resistance?" Kim asked. "Minimal," came the reply. "Most Dominion forces are in complete shock. They are requesting instructions from commanders who cannot respond. Several alien fleets have already requested surrender terms." Ambassador Park So-jin appeared on the main communication screen from her position near the Dominion capital system. Behind her, the massive alien city ships that had dominated the galaxy for millennia sat dark and powerless. "The Dominion High Council has agreed to immediate ceasefire negotiations," she reported. "They are requesting emergency session to discuss terms." Kim allowed himself a small smile. "Tell them that humanity accepts their request. We will discuss the terms of their surrender." "Sir," Park replied, "they believe they are negotiating the terms of our surrender. They still think this is some kind of desperate human attack that will be easily repelled once they organize their response." "Let them think that for a few more hours," Kim decided. "When they see the full scope of our preparations, reality will set in quickly enough." On New Busan, Observer Kelthara sat in Dr. Lee Dongwoo's office, watching displays that showed the true extent of human activities throughout the galaxy. The underground facilities she had discovered were just one small part of a massive network that spanned dozens of star systems. "Your people built all of this in 3 years?" she asked. "We built the foundation over 50 years, Lee explained. "The past 3 years were assembly and coordination. Every human colony, every trade route, every diplomatic mission was part of the larger plan." The displays showed human agents embedded in alien governments, human-designed viruses disabling alien computer systems, human-trained liberation forces among oppressed species throughout Dominion space. The operation was so comprehensive that the aliens had been completely surrounded without realizing it. "The cargo ships," Kelthara said, understanding finally dawning. "Every component needed to build a secret fleet," Lee confirmed. "Delivered piece by piece under your direct observation. You personally verified the manifests for equipment that was assembled into the ships now liberating your homeworld." She looked at the tactical displays showing her own people's rebellion. The Zijkari had risen simultaneously, with dozens of other oppressed species. Their revolt was succeeding because human ships provided the military support they had never possessed before. "Why tell me all this now?" she asked. "Because the deception phase is ending," Lee explained. "From this point forward, humanity operates openly. We want our allies to understand exactly what they are joining." He showed her the plans for post-liberation galaxy governance. Instead of the Dominion's hierarchical system, humanity proposed a democratic federation where every species had representation proportional to their population and capabilities. No single race would dominate others. "Your species will have full autonomy," Lee continued. "No tribute requirements, no forced labor, no cultural restrictions. In exchange, we ask only that you participate in mutual defense and refuse to oppress others as you were oppressed." Kelthara studied the documents. After 3 centuries of Dominion rule, the concept of true independence seemed almost impossible to imagine. Her people had never known anything except servitude to more powerful species. "What if we refuse this offer?" she asked. "Then you are free to go," Lee replied simply. "Humanity does not impose its system on others. That would make us no different from the Dominion." She looked at him carefully. "You would really allow us to choose our own path?" "That is the entire point of this operation," Lee said. "Every species should have the right to determine its own future. That is what we are fighting for." Meanwhile, the scope of humanity's deception continued to unfold throughout the galaxy. Dominion leaders discovered that their most secure facilities had been infiltrated years earlier. Their private communications had been monitored and analyzed. Their military capabilities had been studied and countered. High Counselor Thokman found himself trapped aboard his flagship as human vessels surrounded the Vexstar home fleet. His weapon systems would not respond to commands. His engines had been quietly sabotaged. His communications could only reach human commanders, who politely informed him that his surrender was expected within the hour. "How is this possible?" he demanded during an emergency communication with what remained of the Dominion leadership. "They are a primitive species. We defeated them 3 years ago." Prime Zixandra's energy form flickered with agitation. "They were never defeated. The treaty was their strategy, not ours. They used our own arrogance against us." The realization spread through the alien leadership like a virus. Every assumption they had made about humanity was wrong. The humans had not been learning to accept galactic. Observer Kelthara noticed the energy readings first. The numbers on her monitoring equipment did not match what she expected to see from New Busan colony. The humans claimed to be running standard terraforming operations, but their power consumption was 3 times higher than necessary. She reviewed the data again, checking for equipment malfunctions. The readings remained consistent. For 3 days, she watched the patterns, growing more concerned with each report. Finally, she decided to investigate personally. "I require access to the primary power distribution center," she informed engineer Yun Ji-hai. "Routine inspection to verify treaty compliance." Yun nodded pleasantly. "Of course. I will escort you personally to ensure you see everything you need." They walked through the colony's main industrial sector. Everything appeared normal. Workers operated terraforming equipment. Atmospheric processors hummed with steady efficiency. The colony looked exactly like what it claimed to be, a peaceful human settlement working to make a border world habitable. But Kelthara's sensors told a different story. The energy flows beneath the colony were massive, far beyond what the surface facilities could account for. When she mentioned this to Yoon, the human engineer looked genuinely puzzled. "That is strange," Yoon agreed. "Perhaps our equipment is less efficient than we thought. Human technology is still quite primitive compared to Dominion standards." The explanation should have satisfied Kelthara. It matched everything the Dominion knew about human technological limitations. But something felt wrong. She had been observing humans for 3 years, and their equipment had gradually become more efficient, not less. That evening, Kelthara attempted to send a detailed report to Dominion Intelligence Command. Her communication array activated normally, but the transmission never reached its destination. The system showed successful delivery, but her follow-up queries received no response. She tried again the next morning with the same result. Then, she attempted to contact other Dominion observers in human space. None of them responded to her calls. For the first time in 3 years, Kelthara felt genuinely worried. Dr. Lee Dong-woo found her in her quarters that evening. She had not invited him, but somehow he had gained access to her private chambers in the colony's diplomatic section. "We need to talk," he said calmly. Kelthara reached for her emergency beacon, but Lee raised his hand peacefully. "That will not work either. Your communication systems have been compromised for several months now. Please sit down. I believe you deserve an explanation." She remained standing, her insectoid form tense and ready for combat. "What have you done?" "We have done exactly what we told you we were doing," Lee replied. "We have been learning about galactic civilization. The lesson has been quite educational." He activated a portable holographic projector. The display showed the underground structure beneath New Busan colony. Kelthara's compound eyes widened as she saw the true scope of human construction. Massive manufacturing facilities stretched for kilometers underground, shipyards capable of building vessels larger than anything in the human fleet. Weapons development laboratories that rivaled anything in Dominion space. "This is impossible," she whispered. "The treaty prohibits military construction. We have been monitoring all human activities. You have been monitoring what we wanted you to monitor," Lee corrected gently. "Every human colony has similar facilities. Every cargo shipment has carried components for expanding our real industrial capacity. Every terraforming project has included hidden military purposes." The displays continued, showing identical installations beneath every major human settlement. The scope was staggering. Humanity had built a secret industrial empire beneath the noses of their alien observers. "The energy readings," Kelthera realized. "You knew I would detect them eventually." "We have been waiting for you to notice," Lee confirmed. "You are by far the most competent observer assigned to human space. If you could not detect our activities, none of the others would either." He switched the display to show communication intercepts. Kelthera saw her own reports to Dominion Command, along with hundreds of similar reports from other observers throughout human space, all praising human compliance, all missing the signs of massive military buildup. "How long?" she asked. "The planning began 50 years ago during our first contact with galactic civilization," Lee explained. "We spent decades studying Dominion psychology before we ever engaged in open conflict. The war itself was part of the deception." Kelthera felt her legs give out. She settled into a chair, trying to process what she was hearing. "The war was intentional?" "The war was inevitable," Lee corrected. "The Dominion always attacks newcomer species. We studied your history. Every first contact follows the same pattern. Initial diplomacy, followed by demands for submission, followed by conquest if those demands are refused." The holographic display showed historical records of dozens of civilizations that had been absorbed into the Dominion. Each had followed the same trajectory: first contact, failed diplomacy, brief resistance, eventual submission or extinction. "We realized we had only one advantage," Lee continued. "You expected us to follow the same pattern as every other species. But humans are very good at appearing to be something we are not." New displays showed the real scope of human preparation. While the Dominion believed they were fighting a desperate species defending their home territory, humanity had been conducting a careful intelligence-gathering operation. Every battle had been designed to reveal alien capabilities while concealing human potential. Every engagement was a learning opportunity, Lee explained. "We lost ships and personnel, but we gained complete understanding of Dominion technology, tactics, and psychology. The treaty negotiations gave us access to your political structures and decision-making processes." Kelthera understood now why her superiors had been so pleased with the treaty outcome. They believed they had successfully contained a dangerous species while gaining access to human territory for monitoring and eventual absorption. "You have been studying us," she said. "Intensively," Lee confirmed. "We know more about Dominion civilization than most Dominion citizens. We have detailed psychological profiles of every major leader. We have technical specifications for every class of military vessel. We have political analyses of every member, species, and their relationships within the alliance." The implications were staggering. While the Dominion had been congratulating themselves on their diplomatic victory, humanity had been conducting the most comprehensive intelligence operation in galactic history. "What happens now?" Kelthera asked. Lee deactivated the holographic display and sat across from her. "That depends on you." "We have a proposition." He explained humanity's true intentions. The hidden fleets were not being built for conquest or revenge. They were being prepared for liberation. Humanity had identified 17 species within the Dominion that were essentially enslaved by the dominant races. The secret alliance network included most of these oppressed civilizations. "We know about the Kethmori labor camps," Lee said quietly. "We know about the Yiltar resource extraction quotas that keep their population on the edge of starvation. We know about the systematic cultural suppression of dozens of species." Kelthera realized that her own people, the Zijkari, were among those oppressed groups. Her species had been absorbed into the Dominion 3 centuries ago. They were given the role of observers and minor administrators, but never allowed real authority or independence. "You want to destroy the Dominion," she said. "We want to replace it," Lee corrected. "Humanity believes that no species should dominate others. We fight not for human supremacy, but for a galaxy where every civilization can develop according to its own nature." He showed her plans for the post-Dominion galaxy. Democratic assemblies instead of hierarchical control. Mutual defense pacts instead of tributary relationships. Technology sharing that benefited all species equally instead of flowing only to the dominant races. "This is what we have been building toward," Lee explained. "Not human empire, but galactic freedom." Kelthera studied the documents carefully. The plans were detailed, practical, and completely unlike anything the Dominion had ever attempted. Where the current system concentrated power among a few species, humanity's proposal distributed it based on capability and need, rather than historical dominance. "Why tell me this?" she asked. "Because you deserve to know the truth," Lee replied. "And because we believe your species would prefer freedom to servitude, we are offering you a choice." The choice was simple but profound. Kelthera could attempt to warn the Dominion about humanity's deception, though her communications had been controlled for months, and the warning would likely never reach its destination. Or she could join the liberation effort and help humanity, free her own people from centuries of oppression. "When?" she asked. "Soon," Lee answered. "Phase 3 begins when all preparations are complete. The Dominion will have no advance warning and no time to prepare effective resistance." That night, Kelthera sat in her quarters staring out at the stars. For 3 years she had believed she was monitoring a defeated species learning to accept their place in the galactic order. Instead, she had been witnessing the most sophisticated military preparation in recorded history. The humans had not been learning submission. They had been. 3 years had passed since the treaty signing. The galaxy had settled into a comfortable routine. Human space appeared quiet and obedient. Their ships followed all the designated routes. Their colonies reported their activities on schedule. Everything seemed exactly as the Dominion Alliance had planned. Captain Choi Min-ho guided his cargo ship through the shipping lanes between Earth and the outer human colonies. His vessel, the Sol Dawn, carried supplies and equipment to the Thai, terraforming projects on the border worlds. At least that was what his manifest claimed. "Approaching Vextar Patrol Station," his navigator announced. "They're requesting standard inspection." "Of course they are," Choi replied with a tired smile. "Patch me through to them." The reptilian face of Patrol Commander Skektar appeared on the communication screen. The Vextar officer looked bored. After 3 years of checking human cargo ships, he had found nothing more interesting than farming equipment and medical supplies. "Captain Choi submitting for routine inspection," Choi said politely. "Carrying terraforming equipment to Colony 7, as filed in our movement plan." Skektar barely looked at his screens. "Proceed to Docking Bay 3, Standard Inspection Protocol." The inspection took 20 minutes. Vextar technicians scanned every container aboard the Sol Dawn. They found exactly what the manifest promised: atmospheric processors, soil treatment equipment, and hydroponic farming systems, all perfectly legal under the treaty terms. "Cleared for departure," Skektar announced. "Have a safe journey, Captain." Choi thanked him and guided his ship away from the patrol station. Once they were in clear space, his crew began their real work. The atmospheric processors contained components that could be quickly reassembled into something completely different. The soil treatment equipment held power systems far more advanced than needed for farming. The hydroponic systems concealed manufacturing tools that the aliens had never seen before. On the human colony of New Busan, engineer Yoon Ji-hae supervised the unloading of another civilian cargo shipment. Observer Kelthara watched from nearby, taking notes on human industrial activities. The insectoid alien had been assigned to monitor this particular colony for 2 years. "The terraforming is proceeding ahead of schedule," Yoon reported to Kelthara. "The atmospheric composition should reach acceptable levels within 6 months." Kelthara clicked her approval. Your species shows remarkable efficiency in environmental adaptation. The Dominion Council will be pleased with this progress. What Kelthera did not see was the secondary purpose of every piece of equipment Yoon installed. The atmospheric processors doubled as sensor arrays, constantly scanning deep space for alien ship movements. The power generators produced far more energy than the colony needed, with the excess flowing to hidden manufacturing facilities underground. Back on Earth, President Kang Hyo-jin addressed the Global Assembly. The speech was broadcast throughout human space and monitored by alien intelligence services. The message was exactly what the Dominion wanted to hear. Our alliance with the galactic community has brought unprecedented prosperity, Kang declared. We have learned the value of cooperation over conflict. Humanity's future lies in peaceful collaboration with our more experienced neighbors. The alien observers noted every word with satisfaction. 3 years of treaty compliance had clearly taught the humans their proper place. The aggressive tendencies that had made the war so costly were finally being channeled into productive activities. But in the secure underground facilities beneath major human cities, a different kind of activity continued around the clock. Factories that officially did not exist produced components for ships that were not supposed to be built. Scientists worked on weapons technology that was supposedly forbidden under treaty terms. Director Bae Soo-jin walked through one such facility beneath Seoul. The massive underground complex stretched for kilometers in every direction. Thousands of workers assembled devices that would never appear on any official inventory. Production report, she requested from the shift supervisor. Ahead of schedule on all projects, came the reply. The new alloy compositions from the Trilaxian technology samples are working perfectly. We should have a 50% improvement in hull strength by next quarter. This was perhaps the most beautiful irony of the entire operation. The treaty required humanity to share all their technological developments with the Dominion for safety evaluation. But it also required the Dominion to share certain technologies with humanity as part of their civilizing guidance. Every piece of alien technology that humans received was immediately reverse-engineered, improved, and incorporated into their secret projects. The aliens were unknowingly providing the tools for their own eventual defeat. Dr. Shin Haiwan analyzed personality profiles in her office overlooking the Pacific Ocean. Her official title was Cultural Liaison Specialist. Her real job was understanding exactly how alien minds worked. After 3 years of careful study, she knew their psychology better than they knew themselves. The Vextar show increased confidence levels, she reported during the weekly intelligence briefing. They have reduced patrol frequencies by 30% in the outer sectors. The HFY have withdrawn 2 monitoring fleets for redeployment to other regions. Admiral Kim Tae-ho nodded from his position at the head of the conference table. Complacency is setting in exactly as projected. They believe we have been properly domesticated. Around the table sat the real leadership of humanity's war effort. Not politicians or diplomats, but the architects of the greatest deception in galactic history. Each had spent years preparing for this moment. Fleet status? Kim asked. Colonel, Park Jin-woo activated a holographic display. Shadow Fleet construction is at 87% completion. All vessels are stationed in the designated asteroid fields, invisible to alien sensors. We now have more combat-ready ships than our entire pre-war navy. The irony was perfect. The aliens believed they had forced humanity to reduce their military to a fraction of its former size. In reality, the human fleet was larger and more advanced than ever before. The decommissioned ships had simply been moved to locations the aliens never thought to check. Intelligence gathering? Kim continued. Doctor. Lee Dong-woo smiled. Complete penetration of all major alien communication networks. We are reading their private messages before their own intelligence services. Full technical specifications acquired for all Dominion vessel classes. Detailed maps of every military installation, supply depot, and command center. The humans had spent 3 years appearing to struggle with basic space travel while secretly infiltrating every aspect of alien civilization. Their primitive technology had proven remarkably effective at tasks the aliens never suspected. Engineer Yoon Ji-hai joined the briefing via secure communication from New Busan. Colony infrastructure projects are complete. Every human settlement now has hidden manufacturing capability and defensive systems. We can produce military equipment faster than the aliens can detect it. Kim nodded approvingly. And our friends? 14 oppressed species have established secret contact, reported Ambassador Park So-jin from her office on Luna. They are ready to coordinate their liberation efforts with our timeline. The Kethmori have provided detailed intelligence on Dominion weakness points. The Yiltar have confirmed their planet-based rebellion will begin on our signal. This was perhaps humanity's greatest discovery during the war. The Dominion Alliance was not the united front it appeared to be. Half of its member species were conquered peoples, forced into submission by the dominant races. These oppressed civilizations had been waiting centuries for someone strong enough to challenge the established order. Humanity had proven they could fight. More importantly, they had proven they fought for principles rather than conquest. The oppressed species saw opportunity in human defiance. Timeline confirmation? Kim asked. All phases are synchronized, Colonel Park replied. We can initiate Phase 3 at any moment. Every alien military installation is mapped. Every communication hub is compromised. Every escape route is blocked. Kim stood and walked to the window overlooking Earth's rebuilt cities. The planet showed no signs of the devastation from the war's early days. Alien bombardment had destroyed several major population centers before humanity's defenses had adapted. Those cities were now rebuilt better than before. They made one critical error, Kim said to the assembled officers. They assumed we thought like them. Dr. Shin looked up from her psychological analysis reports. Explain? Every dominant species in galactic history has followed the same pattern. Expand until you meet resistance, then crush that resistance completely. When they encountered our resistance, they assumed we were just another expansionist species that needed to be controlled. Kim turned back to the group. They never considered that we might be fighting for something other than territory. They could not imagine a species that would accept apparent defeat in order to study their enemy. The human officers exchanged glances. 3 years of careful acting had been exhausting. Pretending to be defeated while secretly preparing for victory required discipline that few species possessed. But humanity had learned patience from centuries of internal conflicts. Observer reports? Kim asked. Dr. Lee activated another display. Kelthara, on Nu, the Great Hall of Kepler Station buzzed with activity. Representatives from 12 different alien species filled the massive chamber. Their ships floated outside the station like deadly flowers in the black of space. Today would mark the end of the Human Dominion War. Admiral Kim Tae-ho stood at the back of the human delegation. His uniform was clean but showed the wear of 3 years of fighting. The aliens had demanded this peace treaty after humanity had proven surprisingly difficult to crush. The war was supposed to last 3 months. Instead, it dragged on for 3 bloody years. Ambassador Park So-jin walked toward the ceremonial table. Her steps were measured and calm. The alien delegates watched her with satisfaction. To them, this moment represented the taming of a dangerous species. Humans had fought harder than expected, but now they would be properly controlled. The Vexstar delegation hissed quietly among themselves. Their reptilian leader, High Counselor Thakman, believed humans were finally learning their place. The Vexstar had ruled this part of the galaxy for over 2,000 years. They knew how to handle upstart species. Floating above the floor, the ethereal beings called the HFY observed everything. Their leader, Prime Zixandra, pulsed with satisfied energy. These humans had shown promise as warriors, but they lacked the wisdom that came with age. The treaty would teach them patience, Doctor. Lee Dongwu sat with the human scientific advisors. He appeared to be taking notes on the ceremony. In reality, he was cataloging every alien present, their body language, their technology, their weaknesses. Everything would be useful later. Today marks a new chapter in galactic history, announced the Trilaxian speaker, a being that looked like a walking crystal formation. The human species agrees to accept guidance from the established galactic community. The terms of the treaty were harsh but not unexpected. Humanity would be limited to their current 47 star systems. No expansion beyond those borders. Without explicit permission from the Dominion Council, their military fleet would be reduced to defensive forces only. Most importantly, all human technological developments would be shared with the Dominion for safety evaluation. Ambassador Park approached the signing table. The document itself was a work of art, inscribed on a material that would last for millennia. Alien dignitaries smiled their various forms of smiles. Some showed teeth, others glowed with satisfaction, and a few simply vibrated with pleasure. Park picked up the ceremonial signing device. It hummed with energy as it bonded her biological signature to the treaty. The aliens had insisted on this method to prevent any future claims that the signature was forged. The Human Federation accepts these terms, Park said clearly. Her voice carried to every corner of the hall. We commit to peace and cooperation with all member species of the Dominion Alliance. Thokmin rose from his chair. Excellent. You have chosen wisdom over destruction. Your species will benefit greatly from our guidance. Prime Zixandra pulsed brighter. In time you will understand that resistance to the natural order only brings suffering. Today, you begin to learn true civilization. The other alien delegates nodded or made similar gestures of approval. They had seen this pattern before. Young, aggressive species always fought at first, but eventually, they all learned to accept their position in the galactic hierarchy. Admiral Kim stepped forward. We are grateful for this opportunity, he said. His words were perfectly polite, but something in his eyes made a few aliens shift uncomfortably. Humanity has learned much during this conflict. Dr. Lee closed his notebook and smiled. Indeed, we have learned a great deal about our neighbors. The signing ceremony continued with speeches from each alien delegation. They spoke of responsibility, of guidance, of the burden that advanced species must bear in educating younger ones. They talked about the countless wars that had been prevented by proper galactic order. Throughout the speeches, the human delegates remained respectfully quiet. They applauded at appropriate moments and asked thoughtful questions that showed they were taking the lesson seriously. Ambassador Park even took notes during some of the longer speeches about galactic law and proper conduct. But careful observers might have noticed small things. The way Admiral Kim's fingers occasionally moved in precise patterns, how Dr. Lee would touch his ear in specific sequences, the manner in which Park would adjust her sleeve at certain moments during the alien speeches. These movements meant nothing to the aliens. Humans were known for their nervous habits and constant fidgeting. The delegates paid no attention to what appeared to be simple restlessness. As the ceremony drew to a close, High Counselor Thokmin made the final address. This treaty represents the triumph of order over chaos, he declared. The human species will find peace and acceptance of their role in our great civilization. The aliens began filing out of the hall, their work completed. They had successfully contained another potentially dangerous species. Some already discussed which human worlds would make suitable vacation destinations once the species had been properly civilized. Ambassador Park remained behind, organizing her papers with careful precision. Admiral Kim and Dr. Lee stood nearby, appearing to discuss routine logistics for the human fleet's withdrawal to their designated borders. When the last alien delegate had left the hall, Park finally looked up. Her expression had changed completely. The submissive diplomat was gone, replaced by someone who looked like she had just won a chess game that had taken years to play. How long until they reach their home systems? She asked. Admiral Kim checked his watch. 47 hours for the fastest ships, 72 for the full delegations to return home. Dr. Lee smiled as he packed away his notebook. The psychological profiles were perfect. They reacted exactly as predicted to every stimulus we provided. Park activated a small device hidden in her sleeve. It projected a three-dimensional map of the galaxy. Red dots marked alien strongholds. Blue dots showed human systems. But scattered throughout alien space were thousands of green dots that had not been there 3 years ago. Phase 1. Complete, Park spoke into the device. All monitoring stations are compromised. All communication networks are mapped. All military installations have been cataloged. The subjects believed the deception was successful. She paused, looking out at the stars visible through the station's massive windows. Somewhere out there, alien leaders were celebrating their victory over the troublesome human species. They would spend the next few days congratulating themselves on a masterful display of diplomacy and power. They had no idea that every single alien ship, station, and planet had been under human surveillance for the past 18 months. They did not know that their private communications had been intercepted and decoded. They could not imagine that their most secure military facilities had been infiltrated by human agents years before the treaty was even proposed. Begin phase 2. Park continued into the device. Let them enjoy their victory celebration. In 72 hours, we show them what humanity learned during our 3 years of education. Admiral Kim looked at the treaty document still lying on the ceremonial table. The aliens believed this piece of technology-bonded material represented humanity's surrender. They saw it as proof that even the most stubborn species could be brought to heel with sufficient pressure. They were wrong about everything. Dr. Lee powered down his equipment and headed for the door. 3 years of careful performance, he said. I almost feel sorry for them. Don't, Admiral Kim replied. They would have done far worse to us if we had actually been as naive as they believed. Park deactivated her communication device and followed them toward the exit. Behind her, the treaty document remained on the table, still glowing with the energy that had sealed humanity's signature to its terms. The aliens thought this document represented humanity's acceptance of their place in the galactic order. In reality, it was humanity's declaration of war against tyranny itself. The peace treaty was indeed a deception, but not the deception the aliens imagined. Outside the station, human ships began their apparent withdrawal to the designated border systems. Their engines glowed as they moved slowly away from alien space, appearing defeated and compliant. None of the alien observers noticed the subtle course corrections that would take these ships through seemingly empty regions of space. Regions where humanity had been building something extraordinary during 3 years of careful preparation. The deception was perfect because the aliens had deceived themselves. They believed their own propaganda about human inferiority so completely that they never questioned whether humans might be smarter than they appeared. Soon, they would learn the difference between appearing weak and being weak. The peace treaty was signed, but the real war was about to begin.